Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Allie. We're gonna try to make this quick because we are jumping back into the Best of Horror 2025 from the GoodReads Choice Awards. And I know this video is so late, you guys, I know. And part one was posted so late already, and I've needed to finish out a couple more books before I could wrap this part together. So if you missed part one, I'm going to link it up above. In part one, I read Grady Hendrix' Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, The Lamb by Lucy Rose, Hungerstone by Kate Dunn, The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones, Blood on Her Tongue by Joanna Van Veen, When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy, Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zing by Kylie Lee Baker, Immaculate Conception by Ling Ling Huang, Stephen King's Never Flinch, and Coffin Moon by Keith Rawson. So if you missed that part, it's linked down below, it's linked up above. Yeah, we talk about all 10 of those. So if you missed it and you want to know my thoughts on all of them, go check out that one. For this video, I am going to be reading the next 10. We have The Bewitching by Silvia Moreno-Garcia, Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle, What Hunger by Catherine Dang, The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Canas, How Bad Things Can Get by Darcy Coates, Breathe In, Bleed Out by Brian McAuley, Play Nice by Rachel Harrison, You Weren't Meant to Be Human by Andrew Joseph White, We Love You Bunny by Mona Awad, and The Haunting of Payne's Hollow by Kelley Armstrong. Whew. Okay. So not only am I reading these this past like month-ish just to catch up, there was a couple that I hadn't read yet, so I had to get to them. Even earlier this year. Yeah, the last couple of months I've been working on this, but some of these I read last year, so I'm going to be slicing and dicing some old vlogs to combine them all in this for you guys. And there is timestamps down below for each book and each section. I'm gonna give you guys just a bit of a spoiler now because I know I mentioned in the last part that I was going to show you guys my favorite, because as of now, we already know like who won and like the stats of how everything came in from GoodReads. And last year when I did this video, I made sure that I ranked mine. I can't this year, guys. I've sat here on my laptop trying to rank these and I can't. I was able to rank the top, like the 10 lower ones, but my top 10, I can't. Like, I just can't. There's too many 5 stars. Like, this lineup is insane this year. I loved so many of these that I just can't. I don't even have like my top favorite book of last year because it was just too hard. So instead, like last year, I'm not going to be doing that, but I am going to be showing you guys my ratings. So I didn't have any 2 stars or 1 stars, but all of my 3 stars, 4 stars, and 5 stars. So you guys will still get to see which ones were my favorites. But yeah, I hope you guys don't mind. I just wanted to let you know here in the intro, like front, that I can't. I literally can't. It was just too hard. But anyways, let's get into all of these books.
Sorry about that text you got, I didn't ever mean to send it, so
it's on the screen for you guys. I still don't have a physical copy. I thought I was going to be able to get one from the library in time. I did not, so I did have to audiobook this one. I have read one other from Silvia in the past, and I couldn't even tell you guys what it's called. Silver Nitrate, I think was what it was called. I could be wrong on that, but it was the one about horror movies and kind of like the film, and it was good. It just wasn't amazing for me. And not gonna lie, starting this one, I was like, oh my God, I don't think this author's for me, because her writing, while it can be so beautiful, it can also just get to a point where I'm just like, the story's not going anywhere, or just like, I don't know. And it's weird because it's not like one setting. It doesn't take place in like one spot, but that's what it feels like with her writing. I'm like, this is so slow. I need it to do something. I definitely had to power through the first half. It is still interesting. I'm going to pull up my GoodReads to read the synopsis for you guys because I don't want to spoil anything, and honestly, this book is so confusing, especially consume this with a physical, because the audiobook, I was like, oh my gosh, it jumps 3 different timelines. It's a multi-generational horror tale. 3 women across different eras grapple with danger and witchcraft. I love those aspects so much, but I'm not gonna lie, like I was saying before I was rudely interrupted, I love the fact that we got these 3 different stories and they're all so interesting in so many ways, but I'm not gonna lie, reading this and I think really this really comes down to via audiobook, where again, I wish I could have gotten my hands on a copy. I just kept saying in transit from my library, I didn't get it in time, but I wanted to keep reading. But yeah, we would jump from this point and this point and this point, and it would go from like the 90s and then like jump back way when, and I'd be like, wait, what happened the last time we left off? I don't know, and usually I'm not like that with these stories. I don't know if it was because there was 3 instead of like 2. It kind of threw me through a loop, and then sometimes we would be like ending a part and I'm like, no, I want more of their story. It weaves a tale where every secret uncovered brings creeping horror. Minerva, a graduate student, it delves into the life of Beatrice Tremblay. I love the nods to Paul Tremblay. That was so cool. An obscure horror author, and uncovers a true story behind Tremblay's famous novel, The Vanishing. As Minerva investigates, she feels a malevolent force that once haunted Tremblay and her roommate might still linger on campus. This force echoes the witch encounter Nana Alba, Minerva's great-grandmother, experienced in 1900s Mexico. Minerva fears this shadow threatens her now. An academic pursuit can be challenging, but it could become deadly when witchcraft is involved. I cannot read or speak clearly today. Yeah, it was definitely Mexican folklore, which I love consuming so much. I love when authors bring that to the forefront. And this was their way of doing like a Mexican folklore witch tale. And I love that. Definitely read the afterword if you listen or read this book, because she kind of talks a little bit about it there too. But I love the aspect of this and it being something dark and sinister that's following these women and these places, and how it transforms and what it does to each one of them. It was dark, and honestly, they were all pretty good, but one of the reveals, my jaw was on the floor. I was like, whoa, hold on, Silvia, because you mean to say it's been so slow paced, at least for me, and just kind of like the day-to-day, like what they're up to. Obviously they're researching and like kind of diving into like some darker theme things, but it's still like very light horror and just more cozy vibes. And then it's like, bam, in your face. And I was like, wait, what just happened? Yeah, that alone had me so entertained and just so into the story. And I will say, like, once I reached like the 50% point, I definitely picked up. I felt like it was a lot more fast paced, and like the story just continued to flow from there. So I didn't really have a hard time after that. I wanted to know what was happening. And then when it started hitting, it was hitting, and I couldn't put it down, and I finished it in that one setting because I had set it down so much in the first half that second half, flew through it. I had to know everything that was going on. And honestly, the way that she intertwined folklore and witchcraft and witches and like these dark things, I can't really say much because I don't want to spoil like what it is, but all of these aspects coming together, oh my God, so good. The story was so thought out. Everything from the beginning made so much more sense. It all just kind of clicks, and like, I feel like upon reread, I would love it even more than the first time reading it. It's such a beautiful tale of these 3 people and how their lives intertwine to even now, current day, which is like the 90s, what this 3rd girl or woman is going through and her like research. And oh my gosh, it was so good. 5 stars. Definitely feel like I'm not really hit or miss because her books aren't a miss for me, but I feel like this one was definitely a hit, where the last one I was like, I needed something a little more than what I got. But I don't know, I'm really excited for some more Silvia Moreno-Garcia in the future, that's for sure. This is a book I put off for way too long, and I'm so excited I finally got to it.
Except the stabbing pain up in my chest, and I'm stuttering, I'm done. But now you're gone again. I'll take all your
Let's talk about Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle. This was amazing. I knew it was going to be, but definitely, like, if I wasn't a Chuck Tingle, like, stan already, I probably would have bought this because of the cover alone. And again, if we can just appreciate this aardvark edition, it is absolutely stunning. I love it. But everything about this is just so cool. So starts 4 years ago. We meet our main character. I think her name is Vera. And it's one of those things where, like, I mainly listen to the audiobook for this one because it's Mara Wilson. So I'm really bad with names when I listen to audiobooks instead of physically read it. I'm pretty sure her name was Vera. And she works in, like, statistics, and the whole point of this book is talking about statistics as far as, like, what's deemed lucky and what's unlucky, and what are, like, the, again, like, the statistics, like, what are the chances, what are the odds, what are the percentage of, you know, this happening. So it really heavily reminded me of, like, the Final Destination movies. And I loved that aspect so much. So, like, 4 years ago, Vera, like, this crazy, just, like, intense thing happens. And it's one of those things where it's just like, that would never happen, but it happens. And it changes kind of, like, the trajectory of, like, her life and, like, how she views things, because she's somebody who is so, like, gung-ho on, like, statistics, and, like, she's not somebody that's gonna, like, estimate something. She's gonna be like, no, it's gonna happen or it's not gonna happen. And when the opposite thing happens, it kind of messes with her. It's such a fun time, and it's such a short book that it's one of those that, like, you don't want to talk too heavily about because it will just spoil so much of this. There's more that comes into play, and I had, like, another reference that I wanted to mention that this book reminded me of, but I feel like it would take a little bit of the enjoyment away for you to get it in the end. It does go very sci-fi-like, and I don't know, I just had such a great time with it. It was very fast-paced. There's definitely, like, statistic parts and, like, where she's talking. I'm gonna say statistics so much, and I'm so sorry. But just there's info dumps that you're just kind of like, you get because it's, like, what she is kind of, like, obsessed with. But at the same time, those are, like, the only, I feel like draggy parts, but they do make sense. And some of them are actually, like, really cool. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. And some of them are just, like, really brutal, which is also kind of interesting to, you know, learn about, read about. I don't know. I had a good time with it. I continued to think, where is this going? And I feel like it went in different directions to kind of keep your attention and keep a story flowing. I had a great time. I'm landing at 5 stars for another Chuck Tingle. I've read all of his horror now, and I cannot wait for his next one. I think that comes out in the summer. I'm super stoked about it. So come back to my channel because I will be reading more Chuck Tingle in the future for sure.
I don't miss you on my phone screen. Now I save the tissues that you bought me from a nosebleed. I don't think about you, but it's all sweet.
And that was What Hunger by Catherine Dang. This is my first book by her. I think this is her second book, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, apparently she has one called Nice Girls. Hi, Moon Boy. Hi. Are you wanting to be on camera? It's usually Salem.
Look how cute he is. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. He's so sweet. Yeah, that's my boy.
All right, I'm sorry. It's like too much, too much. It's the summer before high school and Ronnie finds herself too young for work, too old for cartoons. Her days are spent in a small backyard, dozing off to trashy magazines on a plastic lawn chair. In stark contrast stands her brother, Tommy, the pride and joy of their immigrant parents. A popular honor student destined to be the first in the family to attend college, the thought of Tommy leaving for school fills Ronnie with dread as she contemplates the quiet house she'll be left alone in with her parents. Her parents rarely speak of their past in Vietnam except through the lens of food. The family's meals are a tapestry of cultural memory. Thick spring rolls with slim and salty nem chua. I could be saying that wrong. I'm so sorry. And steaming bowls of pho thai with thin, delicate slices of blood red beef. Sounds delish. In the aftermath of the war, their parents taught Ronnie and Tommy that meat was a dangerous luxury, a symbol of survival that should never be taken for granted. Kind of get where this is going. But when tragedy strikes, Ronnie's world is upended and her sense of self and her understanding of her family are shattered. A few nights later, at Ronnie's first high school party, a boy crosses the line and she is overtaken by a force larger than herself. This newfound power comes with insatiable hunger for raw meat, a craving that is both a saving grace and a potential destroyer. This reminded me so much of, I can't even think of what it's called now. I really don't want to have to leave it up to editing Allie to figure this out either. But it reminded me of this book that I read that was kind of like a coming of age about this young girl and different feelings and emotions that she was dealing with and trying to navigate, and feeling different and kind of like an outsider in a lot of ways because of the way that she's raised or the culture behind her parents and family in general. Yeah, I wish like crazy I could think off the top of my head what that book is called. Definitely completely different. Halloring, that's the book I was thinking of. Definitely different themes, but it felt so much the same in a way of having this young girl who is just trying to navigate life. And something that was really alarming to me, coming from another female author, is the difference in the teenage years. Because while I could definitely go back to, you know, my freshman age self and try to put myself in Ronnie's shoes and where I was then, it's just so different in comparison. And being somebody who was homeschooled most of my life and just feeling like an outsider and being so secluded and everything else, it would make more sense for me to be left behind a little bit more. And I absolutely was when it came to knowledge about honestly anything in life, but like some of the hard topics that are in this book, that deals with her and first interaction with boys and different things like that. But I feel like even I was more advanced, which is just so odd since she is going to a public school place, and it also makes it seem like even her friend is like very innocent. And not to say that that's not the case for a lot of girls that age, but I don't know. I say all this because there was just this undercurrent tone of they seem much younger than what she is trying to portray them as. And that was just honestly a little jarring, going from that to what this young girl then goes through and experiences and how she handles it, and deals with it even mentally afterwards. Just didn't really line up, I guess, the way that I had imagined. Obviously, everybody deals and copes with things differently, so I'm not really talking about that aspect as much as just if she was so much more naive as the author is trying to portray her to be, I feel like it would be a lot more extensive as far as the trauma goes with this young character. So I feel like there was some, I don't know, something off in that department. Besides that, I really loved learning about her family and their culture, and the description of food was amazing. There's so much stuff to appreciate about this. I also keep getting these like subtle rage books. I like that this one was so subtle and like a building anticipation of like, oh man, it's gonna go there, and it did. It ended up being a little unhinged. It reminded me somewhat of even The Eyes Are the Best Part, which I absolutely love. I do think if you enjoyed that one, that there is something to appreciate here as well. And I don't know, it was just such a fun ride, although it is very sad, very devastating. Not only does this huge traumatic thing that happens to the family obviously hurt our main character, but the aftermath of it and everything that then happens to her, it's kind of her leading up to that boiling over point, which you see in a lot of female rage books, and it definitely delivers here. With that being said, please, please, please check your triggers. I feel like this author did really good at like trying to go through the motions of tragic and traumatic things very easily, and just kind of smoothly go into them and not take it too far, but it's still present, it's still there, and I can definitely see it being very triggering in a few different areas, some that you may not even think of. So definitely check those out if you are triggered by some things. Overall, I actually really enjoyed my time with this, and I was seeing some people review this a little bit lower and just say that this really wasn't the book for them, and I'm not gonna lie, I let some of those reviews make me put this book on the back burner. So I'm landing at 4 stars with this one. I had a really good time with it and would definitely pick up more from Catherine in the future.
Take all your issues, you can have my friends. I don't miss seeing them, miss you with my phone screen. Now I save the tissues that you bought me from a nosebleed. I don't think about you.
Copy. Ooh, we have, that's so haunting. For my story doctor, aren't you thrilled that the first book I dedicated solely to you is the grisliest one yet? I'm so excited. I have such bad FOMO though that I still haven't read the Hacienda. I am gonna get to that one soon. Okay, so when a demonic presence awakens deep in a Mexican silver mine, the young women it seizes must turn to the one man she shouldn't trust. Oh my god, I'm gonna love this. In 1765, plague sweeps through, I'm gonna have to look this up, but Zacchaeus, I think is how you pronounce that. Alba flees with her wealthy merchant parents and fiancé Carlos to his family's isolated mine for refuge, but safety proves fleeting as other dangers soon bare their teeth. Alba begins suffering from strange hallucinations, sleepwalking, and violent convulsions. I love possession stories. She senses something cold lurking beneath her skin, something angry, something wrong. Elias, haunted by a troubled past, came to the new world to make his fortune and escape his family's legacy of greed. Alba, as his cousin's betrothed, is none of his business, which is of course why he can't help but notice the growing tension between them every time she enters the room, and why he notices her deteriorate when the demon's thirst for blood gets stronger. In the fight of her life, Alba and Elias become entangled with the occult, the church, oh, I love religion horror, long-kept secrets, and each other, not knowing that one of these things will spell their doom. Oh my god, I am so stoked if you couldn't already tell. So she is supposed to wed Elias's cousin, but like starts falling for him. Okay. You guys, about the possession of Alba Diaz. No, this is not my favorite Isabel Canas. I really, really liked Vampires of El Norte, and I think I'm just to a point where the expectation was so high because of that book that I feel a little let down with this book. My god, the yearning in Vampires of El Norte, and just the whole fact that like there's so much together in the book, and while there is quite a few scenes And that's what it is there's just moments that they're together. And yes, you would think that means more yearning. I guess for me, I really like that in Vampires of El Norte, our two main characters are like kind of like traveling together. So they're really with each other through the thick of it and helping each other. And it's over, I feel like, a vast amount of time, where this seems a little bit like took place in a week, you know, until like the end, to where it makes the character development with like this relationship feel a little too insta love for me, which to an extent is okay because her writing is so beautiful and the way that she writes about people who just adore each other is just incredible. But I don't know, something is missing for me, and I can't pinpoint besides just thinking that it's the overall time span of this one, because it's beautiful. It does a lot with this character Alba and everything that she's went through. Everything entwines into her past to her present. It intertwines in with this family because of this like marriage deal that she's making. There's so many elements. Oh my god, my cat's being so loud because she wants in the bedroom with the boys and they're not letting her in. Say. It really is beautifully written though, and I really loved the story following these characters. Alba finding not only like everyone else seeing the signs of a possession going on, but and like the typical characteristics of a character. For instance, Reagan in The Exorcist and like the different signs that she's going to start showing. I love possession stories, so this really gave it to me. What I found unique about this one is the fact that Alba herself too is very vocal about the changes within herself and knowing that there is something dark and evil in her, and getting her point of view of hearing these voices I think is really interesting as well, but also fighting against it and wanting to be freed. So many more messages with that. She's just another writer to me, kind of like Rachel Harrison, where you just get women positivity, women empowerment from their books, and I love that a lot. Although there is some things that I don't know, some of it just feels a little off to me. At the whole of it, with the plot, the possession, the story, the stuff about the mine, and like the history of that and everything that was going on into the story, I'm still landing at a 5-star. I was kind of like going back and forth on it because I just thought like Vampires of El Norte is such a high 5 for me that I'm like, this can't be a 5. But it is. Like, it just feels like a 5-star read to me. I would just say it's just a 5 though. Where like Vampires of El Norte is like high 5, one of my favorite books. Like, it's so good. We'll definitely be reading more from her, and I cannot wait to pick up the Hacienda. This is actually my last book that I'm reading for this. This is the last one that like I needed to just, come on, you gotta get through it. I thought I had read a Darcy Coates before. I guess I have not. I was trying to go through her GoodReads list and I didn't see any. I just think I've just seen her covers so many times, but usually like with thriller people. So I'm not gonna lie, I really sat on this one and obviously got it from my library because I was just like, I'm not in the mood for a thriller. I'm not in the mood for a thriller. I had a hard time picking it up, but I will say it does read very thrillery. It does, but it does pick up a little bit with the horror, I feel like, with kind of like the gory bits, and also if you don't like cult books, you're not gonna like this, but I enjoyed that aspect of it because it made it a little bit more horror. When an online influencer, as soon as I read that line, you guys, I was like, I don't wanna read it, but let's keep going. When an online influencer and several hundreds of his most loyal fans land on Prosperity Island, the plan is simple: 5 days of elaborate games, drinking, and suntanned fun. A week in paradise should have been a welcome. The only survivor of an infamous cult, Ruth, wants nothing more than to keep her head down and not draw attention. She spent decades outrunning her blood-soaked childhood, and her identity is a closely held secret. But when the true history of the island is revealed, along with its sinister connection to Ruth's past, as guests go missing and games turn deadly, Ruth and the rest of the attendees are forced to question whether they've really been invited to paradise, or whether something much darker and far bloodier is waiting for them just beyond the bonfire's light. I will say, if you're into all of the like recent like boom of reality TV shows in books, I feel like this kind of fell in line with that a little bit, having this influencer bring all these people out to play these games and compete against each other. That aspect was kind of cool, fun, kind of kept my attention a little bit. There was just really big parts of this that didn't, and I hated the repetition at the beginning of like her like dissociating and thinking about her past, that I'm just like, I don't know, it felt a little out of place. I'm trying to be non-spoilery here, but it's like, that was your childhood. It happened a long, long time ago. Yes, you're gonna have flashbacks. Yes, you're going to dissociate and think about it. It's going to trigger you sometimes. Yes, that's all valid. It's gonna happen. But I felt like this woman, it's like she's not living her life at all, because you know, she's older now, and the guy that she's with and is taking her on like this elaborate vacation to this island, and it has no connections whatsoever to her past that she knows, you know? So I'm just like, girl, why are you like just dooming on this so hard? Like, girl, you don't need to be here. You don't need to be in a relationship. You need to be back home in therapy, like, you know, reliving your past and like working through it and figuring out like what's gonna work for you, because oh my God. And then I will say there is moments that definitely make sense to trigger her, especially as the story goes on and we start to learn about the island and like things with Ruth's past, definitely. But there was just so much also that just didn't really make sense and made me feel like there was plot holes to this. I will say it was very entertaining, maybe a little too long, because it still just gives thrillery vibes. But I think if you love thrillers and if you love like that reality TV, like people coming together, being placed somewhere to compete and play these games, I think you'll eat this up and really, really love it. Like it could be a 5-star for you. If you don't like cults, I feel like it might take you out a little bit. That was kind of the reason why I enjoyed this, and actually I'm landing at a 4-star with this, is because I like that aspect a little bit more. And I will say I did enjoy Darcy Coates' writing. I felt like it was entertaining. It honestly didn't feel like this long of a book because you really just fly through it. So I did appreciate that. There was definitely moments of like, all right, get on with it. I don't care. I didn't hate the characters, but like I just didn't really feel any connection to anybody, which kind of works out in a book like this where you just don't know who's gonna live and who's not. But even like our main character, like I tried, you know, there was moments where I felt like I could relate with her a little bit, like her talking about her childhood or how it made her feel. I could relate, but there was just other times where some of her choices, it's kind of like watching one of those movies and you're like, don't open the door. Girl, get off the island, go back home. Why did you come in the first place? It was still a fun time. Yeah, that's all I gotta say. Because I am reading Breathe In, Bleed Out, and I'm loving it. Flying through it as well. I read it off and on today. I had some editing to do, so I didn't finish it yet, like I thought I was going to earlier. But I'm already to chapter 28. The audiobook sounds good too. The narrator's not bad. I don't know, it's just been like a really fast-paced read. I mean, it's just one of those where you look at it and you're like, yeah, that's gonna go by fast. This follows Hannah. I always laugh now. I've said this before in videos, but I always laugh when a main character, even a side character, is named Hannah, because I just think of Hannah from the video game Until Dawn, because geez, Han, it was just a joke. Yeah, we follow Hannah. She has obviously went through a lot. She lost her fiance, some type of like hiking trip or something that they were on, like camping hiking trip, and he like died in the wilderness, so like she couldn't like save him and bring him home. And so that was like a really traumatic thing, because she was like trying to survive and ended up being a survivor. But yeah, the whole ordeal is very traumatizing. She's in and out of therapy. She's on different medication. She's abusing certain medications. She has went to med school, is working in a hospital, and has kind of just found herself in a rut in her life where she can't get a grasp of things. And it's caused her to now fail at work, which has caused her to be put on leave. And that's when her friend Tess, I believe it's her name, tells her, we're gonna get all of the old group of friends back together and we're gonna go out to Joshua Tree, to this like retreat where it's going to be really healing and nice for us to all kind of get to know each other again and fix some things that maybe we've needed to. And she kind of feels like it's a little bit of a setup because this guy named Miles, which is kind of a past almost situationship of hers, is going along with them. And he is a DJ into music and is going along with them. And then they also have two other friends, Luna, who is into yoga. And then I already forgot the other guy's name. Oh no, there's another guy, but he is dating Luna, and he's kind of like the Emmett Cullen from the group, who just thinks like he's all that and like he's constantly cracking jokes and, you know, stuff like that. But this is Brian McAuley. It is a slasher. I feel like out of any new slashers, his have really hit for me, so I have been enjoying it so far. They're at this retreat. It's already kind of going a little south, and the whole background story of it, of these like cave mine things around them where like a tragic accident happened years ago, and now it's like that place is haunted by this guy who, him and his brothers, I think, who were looking for something, and they had like pickaxes in the mines and they were never found, come into play. And obviously like the rattlesnake, just the whole vibe of Joshua Tree and all of this, the whole atmosphere and setting of this book has been really fun to read. The characters are not my favorite, but I feel like for a slasher, they're perfect. The overall writing style and everything is just super fun, exciting, and fast-paced. That is just, all in all, makes for the best type of slasher. So I had to check in because I finished Breathe In, Bleed Out by Brian McAuley. I really enjoyed this one. This follows, I think I talked about this already, right? Remember, because of Hannah, and there's a lot of characters in this. So I'll leave you guys with this. It is a fast-paced, fun, almost like thriller vibe horror, with it being a slasher, a lot of suspense, whodunit also, because you're trying to figure out like what's going on. And I'm not gonna lie, as I was reading this, I was like, I've already got it figured out, like I know who it is. I was wrong. It was not what I was expecting, so I am glad about that. But I don't think this one did it for me completely. I think I'm landing at a 4-star. I'm gonna sit on it some more. I may end up saying it's a 5-star. I feel like it would be like a 4.5.
What you want to talk about?
What you trying to get at?
Big girl on the boat, miss my RT. Hit 'em all.
The earrings, are they not the cutest? I can't wait to give her hers. Yeah, this is the look. I put like a little choker with it. I feel like a square neckline, you gotta kind of have something going on, but I didn't want to take away too much from the earrings because they're just so cute.
What I had in mind. Guess that I found my pit. God, I hope you take me. I'm just living life, I guess a bottle wouldn't break me. Thinking about 1,000 reasons why.
The event went so well. They talked about play nice, pretty much giving us an detailed synopsis about 3 sisters who have been raised for the most part by their father. They have some memories of their mother, but from what the stories that they have been told, their mother has kind of abandoned them. And when their parents split, they stayed with their mom for a while in her house and then were taken away and given to the father. And then the mom just kind of like vanished out of their life. Now that they're older, they have been told that their mother has passed away. She had like a heart attack. And trying to deal with all of that on top of her not really being in their life and trying to figure out like how they're supposed to feel about this and how to navigate it. Then on top of that, when they go home for the funeral, they find out that the house that they lived in with her, the mom never sold. And the big thing here is that this house is haunted. That's what the mom said. Their mom went on to write a paranormal type of book. Think almost like The Conjuring or Amityville Horror. It's that type of vibe where the house is haunted or possessed by a demon. Obviously the dad and the girls never really believed her or thought that that was true. They remember their mom drinking a lot, and that led to the girls being taken away. So now the youngest, Cleo, although she's been advised not to read the book and not to go to the house, she goes to the house and she decides she wants to do kind of like a flip. So flip the house and then resell it. Her older sister, Lita, is not really a fan of this. She's the older sister who's just kind of like trying to watch out for her sisters, a little bit more mature about things. Then we have Daphne, who is the middle child, who's just kind of there along for the ride. Like, you do you. She supports both sisters. And then you have Cleo, who is the young one who we are following. And she is something else. She's been so much fun to read. She is the one that wants to flip this house. And her dad is actually really supportive of redoing the house because he's like, this is something that you can do. Something to keep you busy. I think it's really great for you that you're stepping up and wanting to do something like this. But he has always advised her to never read her mother's book, which she is reading while she starts, you know, looking into this house. And she's reading these chapters about like her childhood that she doesn't even remember, like her talking to her mom like when she was like 7 about someone or something else in their house, like talking to her, or being up in the attic, or, you know, stuff like that. So I'm loving it so far. On my way home last night, I made it to chapter 14. I have finished Play Nice, and I absolutely loved it. I ate this book up. I will say for like the last 10-ish chapters, I did kind of like tandem where I listened while I just read it. I mean, I already had the audiobook because of my trip and traveling and stuff, so no shame in my audio book game. I'm a little scattered though, so I can't remember what all I said about this, but this book deals with a family dynamic of 3 sisters. We really get to see their characters shine as the oldest sister, the youngest sister, and the middle sister. And I feel like the vibes for this and each one of them were just immaculate. I feel like for the most part, I didn't really relate with them in a sense of, I feel like Daphne and Lita weren't in the story enough to get a full grasp on them besides just what Cleo tells us. With that, I am a middle sister, so I feel like I didn't relate with Cleo as much, but like I mentioned, I think in one of the last clips, I loved reading from Cleo's point of view. And Rachel said something at the event that I don't know, it just really stuck with me. And I think it was also because I had just reviewed Cackle. I feel like a lot of her characters, there's always like, I think Vesper was the first one where I could say like I had the most in common with, but at the same time, we're still so different. Not that that's a bad thing. I would say I tend to not relate more with her characters than I do with like other characters in books. And again, it's not a bad thing. I still enjoy her characters and especially the character development. And I want to come back to that, but Rachel said that it's really hard for her when she pours herself into these not only books but characters, and how no, not a single one of them is her made over, but that they all have pieces of her. And resonate with that. I feel like all of her characters, there is pieces of them that I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's me coded. It's really hard when she sees reviews and things of not only her books, but other books as well, of people saying unlikable characters or flawed characters and stuff like that, and then just like kind of moving on with it. And she's just like, do you care to elaborate on that? Like, what makes them unlikable? Like she said, I hate when it's just so vague. And if you're going to kind of like hate on a character by saying that they're flawed or that, and I find myself doing that, you know, but I think it's opened my eyes to be a little bit more transparent and like making sure that I put out there why they are that way. Because although I agree with her, at the same time, I do think it's okay to say that a character is flawed or a certain character is unlikable. In some cases, I read a lot of books that have very unlikable characters, but a lot of the time they're antagonist. And I think that that is okay to say. But when you're following a main character, I think it's one thing to say that they're flawed, because everybody's flawed. I'm flawed. You're flawed. But I don't know. I feel like in a way it's kind of opened my mind to be like, you know, you're right. Like some of these characters, you know, the authors are putting pieces of themselves in them, and I'm sitting here saying like, this character is so unlikable, you know, and it can kind of sound bad. And it's a good thing to be a little bit more blunt and like put it out there, like what parts of the character you don't like, and maybe mention some that you do like. Definitely say Cleo is flawed. I would definitely say that there is aspects of her that for me is more unlikable. But as a whole, I do like her as a character. I feel like it was kind of fun to be in her head because I'm not reading this character to be me. I'm reading this character for her story. And Rachel had said how she wants her to be promiscuous and wants her to be more out there and extroverted and all the things that I am not. But sometimes it's really fun to read characters that are so out there and like so confident. And that's the thing. Although I may not be like Cleo, I feel like there's the whole message of this, the whole story of this. Yes, it's a haunted house. It's possessed by a demon, and it's scary and paranormal, and another really good possession and exorcist book that I love, and I ate those bits up. But what I love so much about Rachel Harrison's books is that the story itself and the characters, there's always a deeper meaning behind it. But I love at the core of her book, it is about female being empowered and confident in herself and not needing anybody else to fill that void. Like, they can do this on their own, and it's kind of like their self-discovery that they can do so much that they put their minds to better themselves and help themselves and not rely on other people or feel like they're not good enough and that they can't do it by themselves. And I just love that. I love that so much. This one is a 5-star for me. I have 4 stars, my 5 stars. I love Rachel Harrison's work so much.
Never heard a ringtone, but now you're gone again. I'll take all your issues, you can have my friends.
I read You Weren't Meant to Be Human. I started it and I was kind of like feeling weird about it. It's one of those things where I don't necessarily think it's the author. Like, the writing was pretty intriguing. I enjoyed it. I just think I think part of it was the general idea that I had going into this and hearing, I don't even know from where, I can't say where, but I had heard that this was an alien book, and like, sure, there is this type of entity thing that I guess you could like classify as a quote-unquote alien. Let me do my due diligence and read you guys the synopsis before I do this. Yeah, it says Alien meets Midsummer. In this chilling novel, festering masses of worms and flies have taken root in dark corners across Appalachia. In exchange for unwavering loyalty and fresh corpses, these hives offer a few struggling humans salvation, a fresh start. It's an offer that none refuse. So it's like they take these people who are lost in life. This could be somebody who's maybe like newly like homeless or running away from something from their past. Somebody young, like our character, who is like discovering themselves. It's like a self-discovery novel about this person named Crane that believe they're running away from home, and their background home, they are a transgender man. And so it has a lot of that representation there of not being accepted even by your family and feeling like the outsider, and really dives into a lot of that. And that was honestly probably the best part, I feel like, of this book, the way this author went about it, telling this story and the heart that went into how brutally honest it was and heartbreaking at times, and at the same time a beautiful self-discovery. The writing with like the details and the description across Appalachia was stunning, beautiful. Even like the gory and like gross things that were described were just so beautifully but yet like so grossly done that I loved that. But this hive will take in these people who feel unwanted in life, and all they have to do is offer up other beings to it, keep it fed. Crane is grateful. Among his hive's followers, Crane has found a chance to transition, to never speak again, to live a life that won't destroy him. Growing up transgender, there's this talk of not wanting to use his voice. And I found that really interesting and something that I haven't seen as a transgender representation in a book before. And I just found that very interesting. And again, I feel like the word here is just like such good representation. I'm sure that there's others out there. I'm sure that there are people out there that can really relate with that. And I don't know, I just found it very interesting. So our character is mute by choice. He even met Levi, a handsome ex-Marine and brutal killer who treats him like a real man mostly. But when Levi gets Crane pregnant and the hive demands the child's birth no matter the cost, Crane's desperation to make it stop will drive the community that saved him into a devastating spiral that can only end in blood. It's a dark one. Check your triggers, because it really goes there with quite a few things. I feel like in a lot of ways it would be very therapeutic for some people to read and relate with, you know, these characters. But it was really hard to get through. This is a book that I sat down multiple times because I was like, this is so heavy. And I read this in January, and my mental health just really wasn't great in January already. So I was like, I had to keep taking breaks. And I think that kind of took me out of the alien aspect. We do have this creature-like thing, the hive, and it was really interesting. If you get the audiobook, it has a creepy-ass voice every time it talks. And the first time it said something, I was like, oh my God, what is that? Yeah, it quite literally scared the shit out of me. I love the writing. I did like our main character, Crane. I thought he was very interesting. I liked learning about him and his story and trauma and how it's caused him to be the person that he is. And also to just see like his, you know, time with the hive, his story, like coming, you know, full circle of also having this like pent up like rage building in him, and no pun intended, but finding his voice, I feel like is like the best thing to say, because something that he really struggles with, but also like there's so many instances in this where he's being told what to do and who to be, and it's just devastating and heartbreaking, and you just feel so bad for him. And definitely interesting. I've never read anything like this before, and everything that I've mentioned so far is my favorite parts about this. The horror was great. I thought it was spooky, scary at times, but I think the real horror here is the real life horror of the way this character feels and what they're being forced to go through, and to just think about all of the bases that Andrew Joseph White is touching on in this. Not only the representation of a transgender man, but also forced childbirth, the fact that, you know, women's health care is just in shambles. I feel like there's metaphors and things to take away from that, but I also feel like this hive taking these people in is another metaphor on the many, many people out there who are shunned away for who they are and what their beliefs are every single day, and also just the many, many people who some way or another, unfortunately, in their life, they have found themselves in a situation where they need help and they become homeless. And there's so many homeless people out there. And I feel like the metaphor is taken away of like the help that they sometimes, not even always, get isn't always what's best for them, and it sometimes is really tragic. And I know that there's incredible people out there and incredible nonprofits and organizations that, you know, really try to help as much as they can, and it's just a sad state our world's in. And I think all of that mixed with also reading about it, just, oh my goodness, it was a lot to take in. But I thought all of those things were very important to talk about, and I will leave you guys with this. While I loved all of those aspects of it, it still was a rather hard one for me to get through. Not really my type of horror either. I definitely would have liked more also. I think like certain characters in this just really irked me so bad, to a point to where it was really hard for me to also pick it up because of that. So I feel like I didn't enjoy my time as much as I would have liked to with this, and I honestly don't think you're supposed to, but because of that, it just isn't my cup of tea. I also am not really a fan of when pregnancy is kind of like the twist, or not really twist because we know from the synopsis, but like the, you know, main forefront of something. It's a hard one, I feel like, to swallow. And there was also just so many sections of this that I felt like didn't really do much for the story, and there's parts of it that are somewhat forgettable because it's been a few weeks, and some parts of this have already slipped my mind. But overall, I feel like if this is a representation for you, you know, I love reading books that I can relate with the characters and the traumas and stuff that they go through. So I definitely would recommend it for people who think that it would do that for them. I definitely will be checking out more of Andrew Joseph White, but I am landing at a 3-star for this one.
Now I save the tissues that you bought me from a nosebleed. I don't think about you, but it's all sweet. Gone.
Yeah, let's talk about We Love You Bunny, because I've been flying through this, have been loving it to a point where I'm trying to like slow myself down. I mean, I'm over halfway already. I'm trying to slow myself down because I'm like, oh my gosh, you're devouring this. But I wanted to like check in. I did mention in the beginning of this video that like I'm not gonna spoil We Love You Bunny, and I'm not going to. I do want to talk a little bit about it. So I don't know, I feel like it's one of those things where like, obviously, if you haven't read the original Bunny, you should click away if you don't want to be spoiled, because I feel like that book, parts of it are going to be spoiled talking about this one. But honestly, these are really hard books to even talk about, in a sense of not wanting to spoil anything, or like just feeling like you should, I don't know. It's so hard. They're so hard to talk about in general because there's so much going on, but at the same time, so little. It's more dialogue than anything that like, it's really hard for me to really spoil that much for you. And more than anything, it's an experience. With that being said, this is pitched as not only a sequel, but a prequel. And me going into it, I didn't know like what that was really going to consist of. So I kind of wanted to talk about that. And the fact that this is broken up into, I believe, 5 parts. So I also wanted to talk about the different parts, maybe like the POVs we're getting, the different things like such. So yeah, if you don't want to be spoiled, you can just click away. But more than anything, it's not that much of a spoiler. It's just like the setup of the book and maybe spoilers for the first book. Because as you know, the first book has our girl Sam. Well, this book starts off with them having Sam. Like the bunnies have Sam and they're like, you're gonna sit down. They tied her up, but they're like, you're gonna sit down and you're gonna listen to our story. Like what came of us, like how everything happened. And honestly, this is the perfect setup for me because I was like, what are you actually going to be able to accomplish? Like if you read the first book, you're like, what are you going to be able to accomplish? Here, I'm just going to put maybe the dust jacket back there so you guys can see it. Yeah, what are you going to be able to accomplish with a sequel with Bunny? And so this is like the best scenario in my opinion because I don't know, I didn't want it to be kind of like a spin-off show where it's like they have like a new girl and they're doing like all of the things all over again. Like I don't know what in this universe like could have really happened to like make it different or not super repetitive, I guess. It's super interesting. So to then jump into Bunny and We Love You Bunny, it's perfect. There's so many Frankenstein references and literally like what they're doing. And this is a spoiler for the first book because I briefly mention it like when talking about it, but you know, the fact that they are turning these bunnies into men and experimenting with them and trying to find like the perfect way to be able to do this. And it's so interesting and funny and at the same time so cutthroat because they're like, if it doesn't turn out good, they're like these sweet girls saying, come here bunny, and like chasing after them with an axe and you know, stuff like that. It's just, it's so eerie but like so silly horror at the same time. Ugh, I've been loving my reread and picking up this one because it really does feel like a bunny book. And I will say, I know a lot of people are already complaining about the second person writing, but I feel the same. Like I feel like it is super annoying. I usually don't like to read. Like I don't like when the book is like reading to me in that way and like including me for the most part. Like it has to make sense. So for me, this makes sense. Like I want to be one of the bunnies with them. But in this case, we are tied up Samantha and the bunnies are now going to tell us their story. Hi bunny, it's been a while, hasn't it? We missed you, we really did, so much. And look at you now, wow, all gothed out again, back to wearing your scary bleak clothes and your dark hair still hanging in front of your eye. How funny. You've been busy since we last saw you, haven't you? Very busy apparently, scribbling in the dark, publishing your little novel. So Samantha essentially published Bunny and changed their names, but like they put the pieces together that like she went and sold their story and is talking about them, and now they want a little bit of their revenge, and so they tie her up and start telling her essentially the prequel of Bunny and before Samantha joined them. And I love this part, one, because it goes through each bunny. So we start with Cupcake. And what I really love about it is like what the first book didn't do, this one is doing in a way of, at the beginning of each POV, it's, hi there bunny, remember me? So clever of you truly to reduce me to a baked good. So funny that you described me as a manacle hair braider, or what was it again? A child of the corn going to prom? I'm not going to comment further on your novel, except to say that when I perused it during a rehearsal break, I'm back in the theater now, by the way. Oh, it's very lucrative. I laughed until I cried blood. But it goes on to, I believe, in each part, like do a little bit of a description of each one of these girls. And I just found that that was so cool, and like, I feel like it briefly did it in Bunny, but this is a lot more detailed because like after this little, you know, section, it ends with, or yes, me, Coraline. It began with me, Coraline. So yeah, it's just kind of like them like reintroducing themselves and kind of talking about themselves a little bit. And I loved that. And then we jump into chapter 1, and this is the prequel story. This is about the girls' first experiment and what went wrong with it, and how it was actually like the perfect experiment, but he got loose. And it's just such a fun time and ride, and hearing like the different POVs, because after we jump into Creepy Doll, who introduces themselves. Not that I don't think Coraline's amazing and that her storytelling is amazing. OMG, so good. It's just unfortunate for you, Bunny, for all of us, that on the night of absolute truth, in the midst of our healing journeys, she also decided to be just a little bit of a fucking liar, apparently. And so she takes over the story until Vignette takes over. She says, all right, I think we've heard enough from her, haven't we, Sam? I'll take it from here. And once again, it kind of explains who she is, and then goes into her telling the story until the Duchess takes over. Part 2 opens with Arius, who is their first creation, and we get to jump into his mind. There's other people from the Bunny a story in this. It's so cool seeing this POV of a creature. Again, the whole Frankenstein concept. I was like, oh, this is what I wanted. I loved it. I loved it so much. And I think I'm enjoying it more than others because of the concept of like just getting done with my Frankenstein readings, because this is landing so high for me. Like I'm just eating it up. We follow him for a while, and then it does jump back to the bunnies. In part 3, it goes back to we. I think there is a moment where the Duchess kicks everybody out and she just talks to Samantha, and then she brings everybody back in. And so they're kind of all telling the story together now. And I don't know what to expect with the next 2 parts. I don't know if we're going to have Aries again. I don't know if we're going to have like just maybe Sam. I have no idea, because it's like we are Sam. It's a very interesting concept. I don't think that this would work for me for a lot of books, but for Mona Awad and Bunny, it works, and I'm eating it up. I've been contemplating how to segue into this part because I really don't have any extra thoughts for you guys than what I said in the last clip. That was so long. So I feel like all of the info is there. I really enjoyed my time with this book. The journey of it was incredible. But with that being said, the last 2 parts I had left to finish, I feel like did go a little bit downhill for me. Part 4 was just kind of slow. There wasn't anything wrong with it. I feel like there was a lot of really good parts and really good moments that I enjoyed. And I really do like the prequel vibe of this. I had so much fun with it, and being in the creatures, or the first creations, like mind and everything that creation went through. But yeah, the 4th part just like really slowed down for me in a lot of areas, and I wasn't enjoying my time with it as much. With that being said, I appreciate what the 5th part did as far as just trying to tie in any loose ends and like wrap things up, but I do feel like it was in some ways a little rushed, a little abrupt, and also like we're still like kind of left. I don't know. I will say I kind of hope that we don't get another story. I'm good with the 2. I'm still landing at a high rating with this. I would give it 4 stars. I really enjoyed my time with it, and if anything, I feel like this one had a little bit more of like the Frankenstein vibes than the original. I feel like with the loneliness and the companionship, like seeking companionship and stuff like that, those elements are really heavy in this. And I overall just like really enjoyed my time with it. Yeah, not a perfect 5. But I'm also going to be starting The Haunting of Payne's Hollow today. It says it's a nail-biting supernatural horror about a haunted lakeside property and twisted family secrets. When Samantha Payne's grandfather dies, she figures she won't even get a mention in the will. After all, she hasn't seen him in 14 years, not since her father took his own life after being accused of murdering a child at their lakefront cottage. Jesus. Her grandfather always insisted her father was innocent, despite Sam having caught him burying the child's body, his clothing streaked with blood. But when she attends the reading of the will at the behest of her aunt, she discovers that her grandfather left her the very valuable lakefront property where the family cottage sits. There's one catch. Sam needs to stay in the cottage for a month to finally face the fact that she was wrong and her father was innocent, according to her grandfather. After traveling to Payne's Hollow, Sam is faced with the realities of her childhood and the secrets kept hidden in the shadows of her memories. When her aunt goes missing a couple days into their stay, Sam begins to question everything again. Plagued by the nightmares and paranoia, she hears sounds in the forest and sees shapes crawling from the water as the rippling waves of the lake promise something unspeakably dark lurking just below the surface. I haven't read anything from Kelley Armstrong. I don't know what all she writes, but it's a lot. Look at that backlist. Insane. I might have to check them out. I don't know if maybe she writes maybe more YA. I don't know. I looked this up on GoodReads and it is under horror, mystery, thriller, paranormal, but it does say adult. We have met the main character. I'm enjoying her so far. Her name is Sam, not Samantha, Sam. We've kind of gotten through the synopsis so far, like the funeral, the reading of the will of her grandfather, her finding out that she gets the property and now she's staying out of the property with her aunt. And there's already been like some spooky things going on. Like she wanted to have like a little bonfire as like a celebration of like their first night there. When she went out to the shed to get like a hatchet or like an axe or something, she's seen a like over 6 foot tall man in there, and she said that she couldn't really see him, but like she's seen the form of him and his eyes, and then she took off running and didn't look back. And then the next morning they were greeted with like dead animal on the porch, kind of like a prank, like, you know, we're doing this to like hurt your feelings about being here on this property and stuff. Okay, and also the caretaker for the land is the brother of the boy that her father like murdered. Like what? It was said to like amend things for them because I guess the family like needed money, so the grandfather like hired him onto their property and gave him like, I guess, a good amount of money or whatever. And now like in his will, he is giving all of it to Sam as long as she stays there for like a certain amount of time. She literally has an ankle monitor bracelet because she has to stay on the land because her aunt was going to like stay there and let her just like leave or whatever because it's like really eerie and spooky. Not just that, but like that's traumatic to Sam, who literally seen her father like finishing up the dirty work of, you know, this young boy that he just unalived. It's reading very thriller mystery so far. I do like the touches that they've added of like talking about Sleepy Hollow, kind of about how they do talk about, this is a little bit of a spoilery for Sleepy Hollow if you guys haven't read it, but how the ending is more like of a prank of somebody throwing the pumpkin head and it being like an arch nemesis and not like the headless horseman, or is it? Like it's up to you to kind of decide type of ordeal. So they did mention that, which I kind of thought was cool. But there's also the very beginning, it talks about like this article or episode thing that she's reading, but it's about Payne's Hollow, and it goes on to say like where it's at, the kind of place where you feel as if you've stepped back in time and the headless horseman will ride out at any moment. And our character Sam, she snorts and says, "Wrong part of the state, dumbass." Sleepy Hollow was set in Tarrytown and north of Yonkers, over 100 miles from Payne's Hollow. She said, while my grandfather did claim Washington Irving wrote his story after a visit to Payne's Hollow, that was just more of his bullshit. It's not the Headless Horseman that resides in Payne's Hollow, though. It's the Grim Reaper himself, riding across the land and slicing down the unwary. Yet the dead here don't fall to the ground. They disappear. There's been other mentions of Sleepy Hollow, though, throughout, and I am really enjoying that. It definitely doesn't really feel as much of a retelling yet as it does of just like the characters honestly just like being like, we live in a place that like feels like that, and it's reminding me of the Headless Horseman, where it's kind of taking me out of it a little bit because I kind of wish it was just more sinister and more like Sleepy Hollow than like, even if it goes in that direction, I feel like I'm just going to kind of be like, it's not as good because you guys have talked about Sleepy Hollow this entire time throughout the book. I mean, the mentions and the nods are cool, but like if they're gonna take it in that direction, I feel like it's not gonna be as good for me, if that makes sense. This could just be me being really picky. I'm enjoying it. I did in fact finish Payne's Hollow, so let's talk about it. I actually rather liked my time with this. I felt like my last check-in, I was still at the point of like liking the writing, but like not really deciding if it was going to work for me as far as like the direction of it. But honestly, I still didn't even know what direction we were going. I know I talked about how I was worried that they were talking about this, like the Sleepy Hollow and Headless Horseman legend way too much, that I was like, surely it can't go in that direction. But this really is a supernatural, paranormal type story that just, I feel like, came together really, really nicely. I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna stay spoiler free, but I do just want to say that I guess this could be slight spoilers, but I'm literally not giving any of the plot away. But at the end, you know, like at the end of like a Scooby-Doo episode when they're just, which I love Scooby-Doo, but like for a book, it was like a little, I don't know. You know, at the end when they're like unmasking people and they're like doing their whole like we solved whodunit situation, and it's the same in every episode, and it's, you know, for Scooby-Doo it works, but like for a book you're just kind of like, it was that moment at the end that I was just like, come on. Like just the way things were worded, and it really wasn't even like Scooby-Doo like unmasking somebody or, again, treading super lightly here on what it is. It was just like a part of the book, not the whole ending. And with that being said, that whole like extra plot to the story, although I hadn't guessed everything that was happening, I guessed two major elements to it, including who it was and something that they probably did. That is always a little bit of a letdown because that means this book did read a lot more like a thriller, and that's why I don't pick up as many thrillers these days, is because I hate putting the time into a thriller that I can literally guess 50% of the way through, because it just, to me, it just makes it, I don't know, I don't get like all giddy and like, oh my gosh, I solved it. I get more like, I solved it 50% ago, and I've spent the rest of this time reading this when I already know what was going to happen. So that element of the story, I feel like, made my rating go down a little bit. But I will say, I really did stay entertained with this story throughout, and the folklore that they intertwined with it and the stories of it backing it up in it, I think were really cool. And I really do appreciate more of the retelling the more the story went on, because it really was a retelling of Sleepy Hollow, and I maybe would have preferred a little less talk of the actual Sleepy Hollow, because it's almost like the characters in this book didn't really need to have all of that information, and I feel like we would have gotten there and it would have been a lot more like unique, and I don't know what's the right term for that, like better for their character development to like not already be thinking that at the beginning. I think it would have made it even more scarier because they have no idea of like what is going on. and the way that the story ended up going, like the direction it went anyways, they would have figured it out regardless of knowing that, like, legend. I actually enjoyed our characters here. I wouldn't say that our female main character is Sunshine, but our male main character is definitely Grumpy. He is the brother of the boy who originally, you know, like I said, isn't alive anymore. And there's so much to that story that also like came to be that I found really interesting, the way that she went about it, that it led in a direction of like this budding romance for them that I kind of wish we got a little bit more of, which is weird for me to say that. I think I'm really just in the mood for Isabel Cañas's new one, and it's making me like, I don't know, I think that's what made me throughout this book be like, I want a little bit more of like the romance, because I felt like that's what the author was hinting at, but then I'm like, maybe she wasn't. I didn't mind either one of those characters though. I found them to be interesting, and there was definitely a couple of moments where it's just like, why would you do that? But besides that, I feel like it overall wrapped up really nicely and did feel like a good horror thriller and not just thriller. But yeah, there was still some of those elements that made it more of just like a type of thriller that, like, if it wasn't for all of the extra plot and building of this Sleepy Hollow like retelling, it probably wouldn't be for me. But I feel like all of those bonus things and how much she really added onto the story of having all of these different, because we're not just talking about this like past legend that like her grandfather told her about and is trying to prove her dad's innocence, and like now future her is having to be stuck there and endure it and like figure out like what is going on, and like these strange things are like happening to her. But there's also so much more of bringing up the past to fill in all of the blanks of like what happened back then, and then all the different tie-ins with Sleepy Hollow was really, really cool. And a lot of it was tie-ins with the movie as well as the book. I just thought it was really cool. I am landing at 4 stars with this. I am actually quite impressed with where this went, and I think it was a really entertaining read for spooky season. And that is the last 10 books. So we already know, but I'm gonna throw up the stats on the screen for you guys. This was the top 20. So this was book in last place. We have Breathe In, Bleed Out, which, if you guys seen my first part at the beginning, I literally talked about how I was shocked it was on here, but it was a good shocked. I really do like Brian McAuley. This wasn't my favorite from him, so I can understand why that makes it a little lower, but it is an indie. I think that it's phenomenal that it even made this list, but since it is indie published, I think that's why it's not as broad as some of these other ones. But yeah, definitely shocked to see Coffin Moon next. That one was really good. It really blew me away, and Keith Rawson's writing was just phenomenal. I think it's such a cool take on vampires. Then we have books like What Hunger, Immaculate Conception, and How Bad Things Can Get. I think How Bad Things Can Get being a little bit more thrillery, I think it is going to fall a little bit lower. Immaculate Conception just not really having, I feel like, a lot of a horror punch to it is probably why it's a little bit lower. What Hunger, I feel like was pretty mild too, although it does have that feminine rage. The next ones, though, I can see where, you know, The Haunting of Payne's Hollow could be a little bit lower because it is a little bit more thrillery as well. But a good kind of semi-retelling of Sleepy Hollow, so it's cool that it made the list. Lucky Day, I am a little shocked. I feel like it was so good and such a cool, like, kind of like almost borderline splatter horror from Chuck Tingle. I really enjoyed it. We also have kind of this eerie gothic rage building book from Joanna Van Veen, Blood on Her Tongue, and it's just, I'm shocked it is a little bit lower on the list because it's just such a building of horror that in the end it's just explosive, and it's just it really is a good one. You Weren't Meant to Be Human, I can see where it's a little bit lower. I don't think I've ever seen Andrew Joseph White on this list either, but obviously definitely deserves to be there with like the horror category. And I feel like it's really cool to see some representation here of horror that really takes on some real life horror that people are, you know, still going through. So excited to see my guy Nat Cassidy on this list. But I am sad that he did get a little bit lower in the voting for sure, because he killed it with When the Wolf Comes Home. And then these are the top 10 GoodReads choice. Like these are the ones that won top 10. We have The Lamb, The Possession of Alba Diaz, which definitely deserve to be up there. Both phenomenal books. We Love You, Bunny, I was shocked to see up higher on the list because I feel like there was a lot of people who were upset with this one. I personally loved it, so claps for Mona Awad. I am so excited to see Hungerstone on this top 10 list because Kat Dunn did that. Like, she did that with that book. Two more really deserved, Rachel Harrison and Kylie Lee Baker. Phenomenal new horror. Silvia Moreno-Garcia really blew me away with The Bewitching. This is my favorite book from her that I have read now, and it was really good. I feel like it's subtle horror, witchy horror, folklore horror, and then it's just like, bam. Ugh, it was a good one. And the top 3, you guys, of course, we're gonna see Stephen King up there. You know, he's an icon, he's a legend, I get that. This is not my favorite book from him. It was good. I liked The Visit with Holly, but I am kind of shocked to see it up so high on the list when it comes to what I feel like deserves to be up there. But we all know he is obviously up there because it is Stephen King, you know. It is a good book, but I definitely think some others deserve to be a little bit higher on this list. Stephen Graham Jones deserved this though. The Buffalo Hunter is up there in my favorites from him. The book is phenomenal. I loved it so much and he deserves all the praise. And oh my God, so deserved. First place, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. Grady Hendrix deserved this. I don't know, has he won one of these before? I couldn't remember, but I was honestly shocked because I was like, he beat out Stephen King this year. I thought that that was incredible. Only by like 2,000-ish votes, which is a lot, in my opinion. But yeah, he definitely deserved it. That was such a good one. And I feel like I need to revisit that one. I read it at the beginning of last year, so definitely need to revisit that one. I just don't know if I don't know if I'm gonna be in my feels right now with it because it's a heavy one for me. If you haven't seen that vlog, it was a heavy one for me. So like I mentioned in the intro, I just couldn't, you guys. I could not tell you guys my favorite, like my top 10 in order. Like it's just too hard. There was too many amazing books. So instead, we're just jumping straight to my ratings. We're gonna start with lowest, so you guys kind of get an idea of like, you know, my least favorite to favorite. I actually had no 1 or 2 stars and I only had 1 3-star. And I don't want to be a broken record here and keep repeating and be, you know, keep the repetition going. So I'm not going to tell you why. You guys can go back to the clips of me reviewing the books to know why my rating is what it is. But You Weren't Meant to Be Human by Andrew Joseph White is my only 3-star. We're gonna move straight to 4 stars because I have 7 4 stars. Still incredible. I really like these books. But for whatever reason, they didn't make it into like the top 5-star books for me. But let's talk about the 5 stars that did. Oh my God, you guys. You guys are seeing this correctly. There is 12 books on the screen right now. I had 12 5 stars from horror last year. I was sitting here thinking, like, it's wild. 12 5 stars from literally just the GoodReads Choice Awards in horror. But then I was like, no, Allie. You had 12 5 stars from new horror of 2025. That is insane to me. There was so many good ones. I don't remember last year how many 5 stars I had. I think I still had a lot, but I don't think I had 12. Like, that's insane. There was so many good books, and it only makes me more excited for all of the horror books I get to read this year. You guys will have to let me know what you thought of these last 10 that I read, and maybe Let me know in the comments, out of all of these, if you can pick, which one was your favorite? Which one did you vote for maybe? And if not, you can list them, because I'm the same. I'm the same. I get it. I can't choose. It has been another journey though, and I hope you guys enjoyed. You guys seem to really love these videos, so they're a lot of work. Thank you so much for watching. If you did, I extremely appreciate it. If you would like to see more content from me, I will be doing the GoodReads Choice Awards again the end of next year, and probably, you know, probably April of 2027. I would really appreciate you hitting subscribe and staying along and seeing what other vlogs and books that I have to offer on my channel. Yeah, I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in my next video.